Welcome to Realm, part podcast studio, part magical refuge. If you're new to our crew, we are an audio entertainment company that creates and produces fiction podcasts in a variety of genres, some that even include names and voices you already know and love. Tonight, you'll hear from a few of them. We have horror legend John Carpenter and Sandy King Carpenter with us tonight to talk about their new slate of podcasts with Realm. And to conclude our program, a special message from Clone Club leader Tatiana Maslany. You won't want to miss it. You'll also meet a few of the writers behind some of our upcoming never-before-heard shows and learn about the stories they are excited to tell with Realm. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that all Realm shows are available for free wherever you get your podcasts. We have 8 available right now, airing episodes, such as Season 1 of Orphan Black, The Next Chapter, starring Tatiana Maslany, a historical ghost story called Beatrix Green, and Apple's current homepage feature, Memory Lane, from the writer of the hit series Pretty Little Liars. More shows release every month, and you can learn all about our podcasts at realm.fm or on Twitter at Realm Media. Now, without further ado, introducing Perri Nemiroff from Collider, moderating our John Carpenter Presents panel.
Hello, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here right now to talk a little bit about some new genre content coming from some genre legends. Please join me in welcoming John Carpenter and Sandy King Carpenter to the show.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing very well because I'm talking to you two right now about some very exciting stuff you have cooking, and I figured what better place to start than the very beginning of your experience here. How did you first become aware of the work that Realm was doing, and what made you two say, this is the format we want to tell new stories in?
The magical world of agents brought us together. We really weren't that aware of how much the audible audio podcast world had grown, the series world in particular. You know, it was new to us. And when we saw what they were doing, how series podcasts were growing, it just seemed a place that we needed to get our feet into and to have another way of telling stories.
So with that in mind, we're going to get into the 3 stories that you're telling, and we're going to reveal the synopses for each of them. But before we get there, for those stories, what came first, the ideas for them or knowing that you guys had to create something for the podcast format?
Sheer panic. But I think also research in how it worked. It's a different medium. It's something, each medium, whether it's comic books, movies, television series, or podcast series, has different requirements, different cliffhangers, different ways of approaching the writing. And it required learning the medium, and that required putting on headphones and listening to how it worked.
With that in mind, a twofold question for you two now. What is one thing that's unique to the podcast storytelling format that you are enjoying playing with for the very first time? And then on the other side of it, what's something about the format that posed a challenge that maybe you find yourselves trying to adapt to right now?
Well, the thing about this format is that it takes me back to old-time radio, because I was a big fan. Long before any of you were born, I was listening to radio shows, and some of them were terrifying. Lights Out was especially amazing. And at the time I was listening to it, it was Arch Obler, the very famous character in the movie business. Showbiz. Anyway, he was in charge, and I used to be glued to the radio, and I was absolutely terrified. But it was all in my imagination. This is a form of storytelling that it requires audio. It's all sound. and you provide the images in your head. And I love that. I think that potential is fantastic.
So, John, I did want to ask you specifically about your music, because I know you're focusing on it a lot lately. I happen to have attended one of your concerts, and it was incredible, hands down one of my favorites. But it did make me wonder, is there any crossover between your passion for that audio art form and now the art form of storytelling through the podcast format?
Well, yes, there's a crossover. By the way, I wish I had known about you then, because you could have played saxophone with the band when we went live.
It's still possible. If you call me up, I promise you, I will put the harness on and pick up the baritone.
Oh, you got it.
Fantastic. And what was your question again? I'm sorry.
It was about music combining with this kind of storytelling.
Yeah. The music that we've been doing is exactly like this storytelling, because it's making up, it asks you to come up with a movie. We're just providing the soundtrack. So the same thing here, only we're providing the story too, and the voices and the sounds. You got to come up with the visuals.
We're literally the things that go bump in the night.
You definitely are. So let's get into this first story here. We're going to highlight 3 of them, and we are revealing the synopsis for each of them right now. First one is called Roanoke Falls, a tense atmospheric thriller about the fear of the unknown, the dangers of superstition, and the depths of desperation. A woman investigates a string of murders in the second Roanoke settlement, leading her to a serial killer from the original voyage who waits in the woods. John, as someone who is mighty well known for creating one of the most iconic slashers of all time, what was it about Roanoke that made you think that right there, that's a great time period and a great place to tell a serial killer story?
Well, you just stated exactly what attracted me. It's the time period and the place, and it hadn't been explored in drama and in horror. I hadn't seen anything like this. Sandy brought it to my attention. I thought, my God, this could be great. Plus, the writing on it is just spectacular. Spectacular.
Very eager to see how that one plays out. We've got our second one here. It's called Angel to Some. A chronically ill Catholic student calls on a guardian angel to protect her, but the angel who shows up instead wants her dead. So we can't reveal any spoilers right now, but with this one, I was wondering, can you tease what your protagonist is going through and why an encounter with an angel who wants her dead was the best way to explore who she is and what she's going through?
Issues of faith are always fun to twist. They resonate with everyone. Everyone has moments of doubt. Everyone has things they put faith in, whether it's their lucky talismans or their church or what they hope will deliver them from tight situations. So I think that when you take that and you're able to turn it on its head, you've got a good basis for a story. Horror is allegorical. And I think that when you can take an inner truth and turn it into something scary on the outside, you've got a winner.
Absolutely. We got our third one here. This one really intrigues me. It's called Furnace. When a former tech darling sets out to start a utopia called the Furnace, he and his fellow anarchists rebuild a former dilapidated town using large-scale 3D printers, only to discover they've printed structures made of an AI biotech and trapped themselves in a city that wants to kill them. I am just endlessly fascinated by stories that basically explore how the tech that's a big part of my life is essentially out to get me. So what would you say jump-started the idea for Furnace? Was there any particular real-world occurrence or advancement that you heard of that sparked this idea?
Well, once again, this was a unique story. I hadn't really heard of this before. And Mike Sizemore came up with it, and it's really incredible. And it's creepy. It's a creepy idea. And, I'm all about creepy. So that's why it appealed to me.
How about for you, John, when you come into this process and you read the short stories that they wrote, what is your note-giving process? How do you give them some of your experience and expertise?
Well, my expertise in this area is to keep my big mouth shut and let them work their magic. I'm just new to this, so I'm discovering that there are many ways of telling these kind of stories in script form, and I had to learn for comic books, and I'm having to learn for this. So I just don't want to get in the way. But when I read something, what I tell you that I say to Sandy, I think this is great, is if it gives me a chill. This is for me. This is all about chilling, giving chills to people, and that's what I intend to do.
So you've already spoken about how much you two are working on, and one of the big things that excites me about these three stories and also the projects you work on in general is how you're going about supporting new genre storytellers and up and comers in this industry. So what is it that drives you to do that? That drives you not only to keep creating yourself, but be there to support others that would really see great value in your help?
Well, for me, it's about I make secret deals with all these people that when I get older, they're going to take care of me financially. So that's where I come from.
Fresh voices always add something, fresh experiences, new ideas. The arts rely on a constant range. Society, walking down the street, isn't all one age. It's young people, it's middle-aged people, it's old people. And you get a much more vibrant mix when you have all ethnicities, all ages, and everybody working together. You get a much more vibrant pot and much more interesting stories.
With that in mind, and given all the new story formats we have now, thinking way back, is there anything about what's being created within the genre right now that would make the two of you first starting out in the industry go like, whoa, I can't believe we're able to do that right now?
Oh boy. Well, the whole secret of this, of horror, and it's been with us since the beginning of movies and before then in literature and on the stage, is that you have got to scare and alarm people. So that's the criteria, and each generation comes up with a new way of scaring and alarming and basically reflecting on us. We're all afraid. We're born afraid or we're dead. So we come out screaming. And my job and our job is to keep everybody screaming.
How about your collaboration together? Is there any new element to that process that this podcast experience has brought out?
What do you think, Darla?
I think the big thing is I tend to be eternally curious. I'm always interested in what's happening. That gives us new ways of reaching an audience. Where is the audience? Where are the people we want to tell stories to? How are outside events shaping how we bring in entertainment? And it was real interesting to watch the evolution of podcasting. And so mostly it's just the fact that I sit around trying to see what's new and different and what's happening. And I feel like a dog that brings back bones to my husband going, what about this? Doesn't this seem kind of cool to do? And I tend not to think as much about revenue streams and that kind of stuff as much as that it's a fun new way to tell stories, and then try and dig out the best collaborators and the best companies to be in business with, and who's doing the best at what we want to do. So for him, I think it becomes a source of annoyance, and for me, it becomes a lot of fun.
And I'm the guy who thinks about the revenue stream.
Did the word dog summon a friend over there?
Yeah.
It's right here.
That's the best part about doing these home sweet home. We're always in very good company.
That's
So,
right.
I know this is a bit of a big question, and you're still working on these 3 shows that we just highlighted. But given your experience thus far, how do you think that working on these podcasts will impact your storytelling techniques and your goals? Oh my. There's nothing that'll distract me quicker than an adorable puppy. What is his or her name?
It's Mr. Bones.
Mr. Bones.
Mr. Bones can say hello to Deputy Dewey.
Oh, yeah.
He's not named after Michael, but I do adore Wes as well.
Yeah, there we go.
So just to repeat that last question there, what is it about your experience having worked on these as far along as you've gotten in the process? I know they're not done yet, that you think is going to impact your storytelling in other formats.
Well, I think for me it's a constant growth. I mean, I try to grow in my storytelling as throughout the years. It's always something new, some new approach, even to old material, even to familiar stories. It's something new that comes along. This is very exciting. This is a chance to do something really fantastic.
How about for you, Sandy? Is there anything you learned so far in this process that you think is going to impact how you approach your other work?
No, I'm not sure. But so far it's about team building in the same way that we do it in comics and in film. It's a different set of tools and a different set of people, but that's kind of the fun of all these formats. I still have a lot to learn. The people at Realm are teaching me every day what I don't know.
That's right. We're being schooled.
Yeah, you bet. No, I'm finding out all of my presumptions are ridiculous. I can teach them how to scare people, but they can teach me a whole lot in terms of just it's like when I went into comics and had to learn cliffhangers and page turns and whole things where you think you know writing until you get to comics. So we'll see whether we learn our lessons.
I have to follow up on that for another audio storytelling fan out there who has hopes of maybe writing something that you guys will find and turn into an audio podcast via Realm. What have you learned from the Realm team that maybe highlights value in those kinds of stories that you are going to be seeking out now?
Well, the great thing about it is that you can read a story or hear a story and know immediately whether it's right, because it's whether it gives me a chill. It's very simple. I don't have to. That part's easy.
And how about from the technical perspective? Is there any, a tip or a trick that the Realm team gave you when working on these that you're like, I didn't realize this process worked that way?
I want to see when it goes into production, because I'm real interested in all the stuff I've been listening to every night, because that's kind of my self-imposed assignment, is to listen to podcasts, both good and bad, to see if I can spot where it went wrong, because you learn from failure as much as from success. But the audio engineers are the end all and be all, and the performances matter so much, that I want to see how it plays through the whole way, whether the choices we're making on the page translate well to the end product, and whether hunches I have work or don't work. That's why I say I got to take a wait and see attitude as to whether I'm completely full of it, or whether we know good stories. Now let's see how those implement technically, and whether we give the audience the same chill we have from the raw material.
Mm-hmm.
I want to direct one of these puppies.
I like sight unseen, just based on the synopsis we read. I am totally behind that idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap this up with a pretty big question here, whether it's in the audio podcast sphere or anything at all. What is kind of on the horizon for genre storytelling moving forward that really excites you and hints that there are great possibilities right around the corner?
Ooh. All of it. I mean, the world is incredible now in one sense. In one sense, it's horrifying. The world is unbelievable. The possibilities are opening up for new ways of storytelling, and that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, the deliveries now of stories, with particularly streaming, because the executives in streaming are more daring. And it's all about being able to dare to shake things up in storytelling. And I think the one thing that these years of lockdown have done was to let really good stuff rise to the top. Everybody's locked down. They want to have stories told to them. Before, it was people wanting to hear things in their cars on the commuter rides. Now I think we're seeing families listening to entertainment or watching more entertainment together of all kinds. Horror is always going to be there. It's just hard to top real life right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. The bright side is that what you said is accurate, and that I have shared more horror shows and movies this year with my family than I ever have. So I am grateful for that opportunity. And I'm very grateful that you two are going to be able to spread your horror know-how out into the world, even more so in new formats. So big congratulations on these podcasts. I cannot wait to see them in full. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
All right. Tara, I am throwing it back to you.
Thank you so much, Perri. And thank you to John and Sandy for joining us tonight. And Perri for asking such incredible questions. We can't wait for the John Carpenter Presents podcasts. Next up, we want to take you behind the scenes of some of our upcoming Never Before Heard Realm shows. These podcasts really represent the full scope of realm storytelling, and they include everything from post-colonial fantasy to modern race satire with a hint of magic. Here to talk about them are the writers themselves, and they each have their own unique entry point into the story. Some are in pre-recorded videos, thank you technology, and others will be in quick conversations with author Preeti Chhibber. Enjoy!
Hey everyone, I am super excited to be here and moderate for the next 20 minutes. And I am extra excited to introduce you to 4 sets of writers, each telling vastly different stories. But one thing they all have in common is giving us quality, engaging narratives. So first up, we have Samit Basu. He is here to tell you about Nemo, the post-colonial reimagining of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, coming this September.
Hi, I'm Samit Basu. I'm the lead writer on Nemo. So I was super excited when this Realm show not only kind of appeared last year in pre-production, but also to get the chance to work on it in what was otherwise a really chaotic and really strange year in what is always a really chaotic and really strange country, India, which is where I'm from and which is where I'm talking from right now. So what was, it's always exciting for me to work on international projects. I've been a writer for almost 20 years now. But the availability of this incredible new technology where people can actually collaborate in writers' rooms from around the world, just adjusting for time zones, is something that allowed this project to happen. And the otherwise very, very strange year that was 2020 was also a great time for producers to start experimenting with new kinds of shows, which is where Nemo was born. Now, Nemo will be available on realm.fm and wherever you get your podcasts from September the 29th, 2021. The project is a post-colonial retelling of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And it's a project that has kind of been in the works for over a year now, because we've gone back and forth on it a lot, and we've really been working very hard on it. Now, the project Nemo originated when Marco Palmieri, who's one of the senior editors at Realm, got in touch to say that he was putting together this very exciting team of kind of South Asian creators based both in the US, and because of the circumstances involved, they were thinking of experimenting with actually getting someone from South Asia to lead this writing team. And I think because I'm probably the most experienced kind of sci-fi fantasy writer around from India, and I've been working in Bollywood, and I've been writing novels, and I've been doing comics and all of that. I was very lucky that some of the other very talented South Asian writers he'd been working with in the US had heard of me and thought that I would be the kind of suitable, venerable old person to kind of head the writing team on Nemo. So I was, of course, super excited to come on board, because the idea of working on a serial podcast with writers that I've known a little bit personally, but mostly through their work, like Achala Upendran, who's also on the team, is one of the most exciting fantasy novelists out of India. Mimi Mondol and Shiv Ramdas, who are the other two writers on the team, are very well known in US sci-fi fantasy circles, where their short fiction has been nominated for multiple awards. But we had really known each other very well kind of offline. So it was quite a pleasure to kind of come together for this project and to work with Marco, who's one of the most experienced and also one of the most kind of fun to work with editors that there is. We chose 20,000 Leagues for this retelling largely because we were looking at what kind of classic post-colonial story we could attack and completely re-envision from this kind of anti-colonial, non-Western, slightly kind of, sort of anarchist retelling, let's say. And 20,000 Leagues was one of those things that we were all in love with the story. We'd all been very surprised, actually, to find that in the sequel, which was called Mysterious Island, that Nemo was actually from India. Which made us look at 20,000 Leagues in a completely different way, as this sort of anti-imperial, anti-authoritarian story that actually had someone at the in the villain's role who we suddenly started seeing as a hero. It was a very interesting way to kind of look at this project from a completely whole point of view. So we used to meet in what was super early morning for me and what was evening for everyone else. I think Shiv was in Seattle, Achala is in LA, Marco and Mimi are in New York, and I'm in Delhi. So we found the time where our powers could combine. And we all have very different styles. So it was super exciting to have all these voices just come together and create something that hopefully is kind of greater than some of its parts. Because we all have very different ways of looking at the material, because India is an incredibly diverse country. We come from very different backgrounds. We all have very different approaches to storytelling, but we're also telling the story that is a classic adventure of people from around the world coming together to fight imperial powers. People who, when you're looking at it from the storytellers of the original, there were people who saw Nemo as a villain. But if you're coming from the part of the world that we do, Nemo is not a villain at all. He's quite this dashing revolutionary figure, whatever his very serious problems. So we're very excited to bring you this September exactly how we saw this strange and very dangerous man, and why we think that for all his problems, he's actually the kind of hero that you might remember. So listen to Nemo starting September 29, 2021, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, welcome back. Thank you, Samit, for that video. Now I am joined by Ellen Goodlett, author of Elixir.
Hi.
Hi, Ellen.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you? Can you tell everybody watching just a little bit about what Elixir is?
Yeah, so Elixir is a Prohibition era inspired fantasy. It's set in a world where a certain kind of cocktail known as an elixir can give you magical powers when you drink it, but they are illegal. So Elsie has been raised her whole life hearing about how dangerous elixirs are. She's also seen it firsthand. Her older sister struggles with an addiction to them. But when her older sister goes missing, she kind of has to delve into the world of elixirs to find her. And her search leads her to a hush bar, which is basically a magical speakeasy. And it is run by Vera, who's had this hush bar in her family for generations. And she is strongly against the ban on elixirs. She wants them to be made legal. And yeah, so from there, kind of the girls' lives collide, and it's kind of a mystery with like a bit of a star-crossed romance.
Well, I love everything about this idea, from star-crossed lovers to the mystery to the speakeasy to, everything about it sounds really cool. What about kind of all those different pieces did you find inspiring?
Yeah, so it originally kind of started from thinking about prohibition. I always find that time period really interesting. I love going to speakeasies, but it's also interesting to me because we think of prohibition as something that happened in the past and now it's over. But we're kind of still dealing with the repercussions of it. That was kind of the first time that organized crime syndicates really blew up in the US. And then the policies that the US had during Prohibition have kind of been continued in the war on drugs. So obviously it wasn't an exact like one-to-one with this story because magic is very different from drugs. But it was interesting to like weave in that real world history when it came to the challenges that these two women will be facing in this world and the kind of mafia-esque underground scene that is there, but also kind of the glitz and the glam of speakeasies.
What were some of your favorite parts of writing this story? Like what did you find yourself drawn to?
So I really love writing kind of queer versions of romance tropes. So in this case, yeah, the star-crossed lovers from opposite worlds who don't think that they have anything in common and normally would never go for each other. Both of them are like, we shouldn't go for each other. Obviously, they're going to though. So I love like writing those kind of tropes. It was also really fun. I am a sucker for like big crime family stories like Peaky Blinders. So I added some of that in here. I would say Vera's family are not as hardcore as the Peaky Blinders, but it's a little bit of be gay, do crime energy.
That's amazing. That feels like the best blurb that they could give this podcast. What do you find were some of the challenges, to specifically, I guess, magical world building in this kind of format? Because it's such like a big part of what makes this story work.
Yeah, it was actually it was a really fun challenge to write for audio for this. I learned in doing so that my fantasy style tends toward very long, rambly sentences. Those don't really work when you have a narrator that like is going to run out of breath halfway through the sentence. So it was fun, like learning to write with specifically the audio experience in mind. It was interesting hearing earlier when John was talking about comics, because I do think it was kind of similar to writing for comics in a way, because when you're writing comics, you don't want to describe what's on the page because that's what the artist is doing. Like the people reading it are already seeing that. So with audio, it was kind of like that. I didn't want to over describe what people are hearing. I kind of want to let that be in the background, but I also don't want to add like a million sounds that are going to overwhelm the listener.
Well, what makes I guess my last question for you is what makes Elixir ideal for a platform like Realm, like that specializes in this kind of audio storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the 20s atmosphere is really fun to add in there, you know, with the music. And like, you know, it's a lot of bar hopping. There's one point where the characters visit another speakeasy, which is kind of modeled on House of Yes in New York. So it's kind of like fantasy drag bar. So obviously there's a lot going on in the background there. So yeah, I think it's going to add to the experience for sure.
That all sounds very, very cool. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us about Elixir. And for everyone watching, you can find Elixir available June 3rd wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for having me.
Next, I'm very, very excited to talk about If I Go Missing, The Witches Did It with Pia Wilson. Hi, Pia. Oh, no, I don't think I can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Somebody had to do it. It had to be me.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be talking to you about this podcast.
Yeah. So why don't you start by telling us more about what If I Go Missing, The Witches Did It is and what our listeners can expect from it.
Sure. It's a little bit of a take on the missing crime drama. And it's about a Black writer named Jenna who goes to Westchester. She runs afoul of this coven of social media influencers. And when Jenna goes missing, this well-meaning but misguided white podcast host with a savior complex, although she would say she does not have that, she takes up the cause of finding Jenna. And she clashes with the influencer witches as well.
That sounds awesome. And I was like kind of covering my mouth so I wouldn't laugh and interrupt what you're saying. What do you find exciting about writing for this kind of audio experience?
Well, audio plays, I think like John Carpenter was talking about, are a great genre. And I'm an auditory person anyway. And that's not a genre, it's a platform. But, like the idea of tuning in via sound and listening to a story, it feels more cozy, somehow. And I had to learn how to not rely on the visuals of magic, which was something new and different for me than the idea of magic. And writing it in a way so that people could see the magic themselves.
That is so, I didn't even consider that notion of like having to be able to describe magic well enough without being able to see the thing while you're listening to it.
Yeah, I'm like, I get cut off from the visual effects. I got nothing.
What was it about If I Go Missing, The Witches Did It that pulled you to the idea?
Right. Well, I've loved magic and witches like since I was a little kid. The idea of being able to walk into like this disorganized, like cramped bookstore and find like some magical book that could take me through time or give me powers, I can't get enough of that. Right. So the idea of writing about witches is something I've wanted to do for a long, long time. And then I noticed that witches are always portrayed in this old manner, like, dusty old books. It's never like really a modern witch. I mean, the last time we really had a modern witch was Bewitched. I know we have academies, shows with academies of young witches, but I wanted to show like modern stuff, and nothing is more modern than social media and influencers. I mean, that's the culture. I mean, the start of the pandemic, we had people just doing Instagram lives for absolutely no reason. It's like, here's my house. Let me talk to you about going to the store. Like, why are you doing this? So, like throw a little magic on top of that. I couldn't wait. You know,
The prospect of a witch influencer is so terrifying to me on like so many levels. And you do, what's cool about this idea is you are tackling some like very real issues in this contemporary fantasy. What kind of makes fantasy the genre for this kind of story and for pulling those real world ideas into it?
right. Well, I think it's the same between fantasy and sci-fi. When you present ideas in those arenas, people get a chance to step back from it. You're not accusing them of doing anything or being off. And we live in a very judgy society, so it's like you make a wrong step, you're blasted from all sides. So I think we need to give each other a little bit of grace. And so sci-fi and fantasy gives us a chance to look at these things without feeling persecuted. And that's why I like those two arenas. Plus magic.
Plus magic, which makes everything better always.
Exactly.
So my last question for you is, what do you hope people will think about while listening to the show?
Well, first, I hope that they laugh, right? And then I hope that I'm a character writer, so I hope that they fall in love with the characters as much as I did. And also, the thing I want them to realize the most is that they have their own personal power, that whether you want to call it magic, whether you want to call it confidence, whatever you want to call it, you are on this earth for a reason and you have power. You just need to use it, and use it for good, please, not to become a famous influencer. Although, if that's your bag, okay.
Well, thank you so much, Pia. I'm looking
My
forward to
pleasure.
hearing the show. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Next up, we have Jennifer Shotz and Brian Murphy, who are here to talk to you about Fault Lines. It's an exciting new drama set during a California earthquake.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Shotz.
And I'm Brian Murphy.
And we are the co-authors of Fault Lines, a new contemporary family drama that's coming out on realm.fm. It is set in the during and in the immediate aftermath of the biggest earthquake to hit California, the big one. And
it'll be available on realm.fm or wherever you get your podcast starting on September 29th, 2021.
Fault Lines originated because we, as a long married couple, really understand that when you marry someone, you marry a family, and every family is inherently dramatic. There is no such thing as a family that doesn't have something bubbling beneath the surface. If you peel back the top layer of any family, you'll find the crazy.
And especially it can come out in times of stress or world catastrophe.
That's right.
Right, in this case.
That's right. And also, we all make decisions that feel like the only choice we have in the moment. And sometimes we don't know how that's going to play out for generations or decades. So the main characters in this story, it's like I said, it's a family, and there's the mom, Pearl, who's a little bit elderly, and she's Chinese American, and she has raised 3 kids on her own. The oldest is Lindsay, who's kind of a powerful businesswoman, mother of 2. She's got a great husband named Kevin, who's really supportive, and they really understand each other. And Kevin knew what he was getting into when he married into Lindsay's family, or so he thought. Lindsay's the next younger sibling is Izzy.
Izzy, who is works for FEMA, very capable, prepared, and yet doesn't always feel that way. Has a lot going on under the surface, and in the beginning of our story, just started a new relationship with a woman she works with that's got its own bit of fraughtness for her. And
Fraughtness a word?
No, not really. I'm just making it up.
Okay.
And the start of our story, all the kids are separated. We'll introduce the youngest in a second. And they sort of in the midst of this earthquake, have to find each other. And the youngest is
Rye, and they are the baby of the family and are treated as such. I think anyone with a sibling will recognize some birth order dynamics in this story. And so these three children and Pearl, their mom, have been living in the wake of their father's death, Pearl's husband's death 18 years earlier. And some of the repercussions of that are starting to show. So we co-wrote this story, Fault Lines, as we were under lockdown in our not very large home in Brooklyn with our two kids who are 11 and 15, and our dog who runs the house. And speak of the devil, here she is. And I think it's safe to say we got a lot of the emotional material from our experience as it was happening. The intensity of family, and they're the people who know you so well that you can't even escape yourself because you have to see yourself the way they see you. And that's hard, especially when you're really cooped up and under scrutiny. And I think that carried over a lot into this story.
Yeah, and also it draws off of our experiences in the families we grew up in. And I think sort of being separated from your family because of the pandemic and not being able to see anybody, I feel like it did give us a chance to sort of reassess some of those relationships and think about things and maybe choices that were made and why. And it's sort of maybe found its way into some of the storylines in the book.
Yeah, there's an urgency to family, an urgency you cannot escape, even when it's just mundane daily life. And then you put a family in this incredibly intense life or death situation, whether it's the big one, the massive earthquake, or worldwide COVID lockdowns. You learn a lot about yourselves and about each other. And we worked on different floors so that we didn't have to see each other all day.
And this was the first thing we actually wrote together. So we had to work out among sort of our writing relationship as well as our obviously continuing personal relationship. I
think our writing relationship was better.
I think it was actually, yeah. Maybe there's different floors. But it all ended up working out rather well with a lot of support from the Realm team. It was really fantastic.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of creative collaboration between us and among us with the Realm team.
And it was also nice to get a lot of your fears and worries about the pandemic out onto some characters that were not quite as immediate in your life, and they could experience some of the fears and worries and concerns that all of us had while being stuck inside.
I think also the characters in this story, particularly the kids, really reflect the structure of our families in a lot of ways. Our family that we've created, the diversity of it in multiple different ways, but also the families that we came from. Like Brian said, there's a lot of us in there. So I have written many books in print, and I work in a print magazine, print format. So writing for audio was entirely new to me, which is why Brian was so vital to this process, because Brian has worked in television for almost 25 years and brings that cinematic sense to it.
Yeah, I'm an editor, TV and film editor, and it was really interesting I've tried my hand at screenplays and things in the past, and this format,
who hasn't?
And in this format, it was really, I thought, kind of a cool hybrid of kind of traditional novelization type storytelling and screenwriting, and especially in the context of it's essentially an action story. There's a lot of action, a lot of earthquakes, aftershocks, things like that, and to have the visuals in your head that you're trying to describe, but knowing you have sort of the support of the audio storytelling as well underneath it. It took a little while to get adjusted to it and not write out everything. And again, the team was really helpful in helping us adjust to the format. But it's nice to have that to rely on. And it really feels like in some ways, kind of like almost like a radio play. It's like a audio movie that you're creating. And despite the challenges, I really think that it's a great new kind of a format I haven't really experienced before.
it's almost an old format and a new format merging
exactly.
into something that's so kind of core to who we are. There's something about listening to it rather than watching it or seeing it on the page that I think just goes right into you as a someone experiencing the story. And it's what we all want and need right now.
Thank you so much to Preeti and our writers for peeling back the layers of audio storytelling for us. Now, I know that the Clone Club is clamoring to hear what Tatiana has to say, and trust me, it is worth the wait. We're almost there. But before she shares her exclusive announcements, that's right, plural, multiple, there's more than one. I'd like to introduce Realm's CEO, Molly Barton, to talk about Realm Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Hi there. I'm Molly Barton, the CEO and co-founder of Realm. I'm really excited to be here with all of you fans and media from all over the world to celebrate the announcement of our newest shows. From the whole Realm team, I want to say thank you for all the love. We've been hearing the love from you on social for our storytelling, our commitment to inclusivity, our new brand, and of course, our intrepid new mascot, Ruby. Ruby and the Realm team will continue leading you to great fiction podcasts that offer escape, the opportunity to listen away, immersing you in stories that, while fiction, are about us, about now, and about the future. A window and a mirror at the same time, as our head of content likes to say. And now I'm delighted to share the news that we're launching Realm Plus in collaboration with Apple Podcast subscriptions. Realm Plus is a subscription so fans can listen to Realm shows ad-free, binge whole seasons of shows without having to wait for weekly episode drops, get exclusive bonus episodes for select shows. Fans of Memory Lane and Orphan Black, get ready. We have very special episodes coming for you, and exclusive shows for subscribers only. Realm Plus is a great way to support the storytellers that you love for $2.99 a month. We're excited to bring you Realm Plus later this month and literally cannot wait for you to hear our upcoming shows. Back to you, Tara.
Thank you so much, Molly. Okay, it's time. You've waited long enough. Tatiana, take it away.
Hey there, Clone Club. It's Tatiana Maslany, and I'm hoping that you're all enjoying the first season of Orphan Black, The Next Chapter, which is now available for free wherever you get your podcasts. And it is the #1 fiction podcast in the US on Apple, which is so exciting. And we definitely couldn't have done it without you. I'm so happy to finally be able to share some very exciting news with you all. You ready? First things first, Orphan Black, The Next Chapter is back. And it's returning on October 29th, 2021 on realm.fm and wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, the rumors are true. I will be returning for season 2.
And me too.
Et moi aussi. And me too.
Surprise. Because no clone is ever truly alone. So I will be joined by 2 of my very good friends and familiar voices this time around. The incredibly talented Jordan Gavaris and Evelyn Brochu. So happy to have them. Jordan did a tiny little bit Easter egg at the end of Orphan Black, The Next Chapter, the first season, and we just had so much fun reprising our characters, and I'm so glad that he's here for our second season. If that wasn't good enough news for you, I've got even more. I've had so much fun working with the team at Realm on Orphan Black, The Next Chapter, that I'm exec producing and starring in a brand new original podcast for them called Power Trip. Power Trip is the story of a woman who is named Jane and who is a hot mess, which I relate to. But when she comes into this very special kind of magic, the kind that makes people follow her every command, she has to navigate the fun and the consequences of that power. It's written by the amazing Mary Hamilton, Kara Horner, Becca Mix, and Sarah Smith, and it's Very fun, dark comedy of my dreams, and I can't wait for you to hear it when it's available this fall, wherever you get your podcasts. That's Power Trip, starring me. For more information about these shows, you can follow Realm on Twitter @Realm Media. Thank you all so much for all your incredible support and for listening.
Winky and I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight, and thank you to the incredible No Studios for helping us put on this event. Realm is your portal to another world, and all our shows are available for free wherever you get your podcasts. Listen away. Bye.